Hi everyone, my name is Sue Newhouse and I'm a Denton County Master Gardener. This presentation is on soil prep and plant installation. I am the person who just wants to dig a hole and stick it in whenever I happen to have that plant, and I have really had to force myself to do things a little bit differently to make sure that I have more success, less waste of money, because sometimes I could plant things multiple times just hoping to get it right. If you're anything like me, I have done that a lot. So this is about how to get your soil ready and how to install your plant. So, okay, sorry. I'm over here at the AgriLife building today, and they kindly let me use one of the offices because I have satellite internet and it's not really reliable. So with that, let me get on. Oh, the Denton County Master Gardener website here on your screen, dcmga.com. We'll look at that a little bit more too, but our job as Denton County Master Gardeners is to pass information on to citizens of the community of the county and help them using some research-based information on how to best grow in this climate. And I know we have a lot of new people moving into Denton County right now, and a lot of them come from all over the country who have planted at different times of the year and are really confused about how and when and what to plant. So about the Denton Master Gardener program, you know, our job is to educate and work with the citizens of the county. We use research-based information from Texas A&M, and I think it's Aggie Horticulture. You can go online and check them out. We've been doing this for a long time, 40 years plus. And in just 2018, we logged over 20,000 hours of volunteer time. We have 4 major countywide events where we raise funding for DCMGA. We do a spring plant sale, a garden tour, a vegetable and fruit show, and the fall garden festival. Now, some of those may have been moved slightly because of the pandemic this year, but you can find the current information about that at the DCMGA website. And we have 37 unique projects across Denton County. So we also have a helpline. I don't know if it's on here, but if you have any questions about the Master Gardeners, or if you have a question about your garden, you can always call. I'm sure the helpline is on this webpage. So this is what the Denton County Master Gardener webpage looks like. It shows upcoming events, request a speaker for youth. Some of those, I'm part of the Speakers Bureau. You may not be able to get someone in person, though that might be changing later on this summer. You'll just have to see. But we do a lot of Zoom meetings and that type of thing. And there's a newsletter that we have, and if you want to become a Master Gardener, it's a great program. There's so much information. I mean, when you go through the program, there's no way can you remember it all, but it gives you a starting place, really, to learn about the soil and the plants and what we do and what we have the capacity to do. So if you're interested in becoming a Master Gardener, we want you, because we need more people to help get this information out to the community. So most of what we do is try to grow great soil, and you can get a soil analysis done. It tells you, you know, to take soil samples, you should do it from several places in your garden, about 4 to 6 inches deep. Mix the soils together and you pack them. You can send them in plastic Ziploc bags, and you can ship them over here to, you can look at soil testing at TAMU, Texas A&M University.edu, and it will tell you how much they charge for different types of soil analysis. I've done it myself to get information about the soil in different areas where I was planning to plant, and they've been very helpful. So this I found helpful here, the amendments for clay soil, because you know, we have so many different soils in North Texas. I have sandy loam in most of the area that I have, and I have a couple areas where it's clay, but for the most part I have sandy loam. But you go from clay to the black gumbo type stuff. You have a lot of soil, sand areas that run through. So the neighbor beside you could have very different soil than you have. Growing Texas native plants is pretty critical. I did a garden last year where I got all native plants in that garden, and I can tell you that through this freeze, none of them were damaged. They were left uncovered out completely on a north-facing pasture, completely hit by all of the wind and the ice. Every one of them is up and green and looking beautiful. So growing native plants is really, really helpful, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Reduce tilling. A lot of times tilling makes a smooth pan bed at the bottom of the tilling process, and the roots just can't get through that. So moving towards no-till processes is very important. There's a lot of information online now about no-till. That's something I personally have done this year significantly, is move towards no-till processes. Use paths to reduce soil compaction, because when you use no-till and you build your soil up, it's important to stay off that soil or you compact it greatly. And the purpose of building soil with the no-till process is to have nice, deep soil that the roots can really penetrate. So now put down 3 inches of expanded shale. I've heard this for years, and to me, expanded shale was just something way off. I never even thought about it. I thought, well, it's too expensive. But I actually went this morning and I looked in Dallas where I could find it. There's a place called Living Earth down near 635. I'm not recommending this place. I'm just trying to tell you where you can get it. And for 1 yard to fill a pickup bed truck is $79, but you can buy it in 40-pound bags for $7. So it's no different than buying a bag of any other amendment at one of the big box stores for $7. Covers about 100 square feet. It mixes in with the soil, allows air, aerates the soil, makes some space, and loosens up that soil. So expanded shale is really a very affordable option, and it's something I'm going to be looking into myself. So that's an option for you. Like I said, I found it at Living Earth in Dallas, and it was $7 for a 40-pound bag. Be patient. Now, I'm not good at being patient, but transforming clay soils into well-structured growing soil, it can take a few years, but that doesn't mean you can't plant it in the meantime. So just be aware it can take a long time to get the soil exactly the way you want, but you can get it started at any time, and better now than never. So you can build raised beds and put the kind of soil in you want there. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. I'm just trying to do a time check here. I have a lot of stuff. So what we're going to talk about today is where and what and when to plant, how to plant, and irrigation. And I think I have about 30 slides, so there, get going. So where do you want to plant? That's pretty important when you talk about planting something. Site selection. What kind of structures do you have around there? What plants, whether it's sun or shade, what kind of water, and traffic. Because you know, if you have an existing structure there, or you have a building and it's blocking the light, or it's too far for you to bring the hose, or you have an animal that consistently runs along that fence line, it's not the best place to put that plant. So site selection is one of the most critical things when you're going to plant something in your yard. So then the next thing you need to think about is, what do you want to plant? Seeds and plugs, transplants, trees, full-size plants, they all need different care. You can plant seeds and they'll sprout very easily in the soil we have, but it makes a difference as to when you plant it, what you have around it, the traffic, and all those different things. If it's in a high traffic area, you might want to put something that's a little more established, like a shrub, a bush, a tree. Or if you want a flower garden, you might start with plugs or 4-inch pots. You might put a fence around it, you know. So it's important to think about what you want to plant and the size of that plant that you want. Certainly it's cheaper if you want to do seeds, but you might have to do a little bit more care to get that plant to the stage you want, in the place you want, at the time you want. So all of those things need to be taken into consideration. And when is the best time to plant that? Let me see, this is the slide really. This is my Sue planting disclaimer. I want the plant I want to plant in the place I want it to go when I'm ready to plant it, and I want it to live. And that's the struggle that I've always had, because I just want to do it when I want to do it. I don't really care if the plant needs it. So I have to really fight that, and I can tell you, you'll be much more successful if you don't live by that theory. So when's the best time to plant? You will find strawberries at Home Depot or Lowe's or any of the box stores in March, February, March, April. But I can tell you the time to plant strawberries is in the fall. And they don't sell them in the fall because people don't want to garden in the fall, but that's the best time to plant strawberries. And they live dormant all winter. They grow some greenery, and then they take off and produce the fruit in March, February to March. So the reason I'm using strawberries as an example is the time to plant something may not be the time that you find it at the store. The time to plant what you want might be found somewhere else, online with someone who raises that particular type of plant. For example, trees are best planted in the fall so that they have the winter to build that root system. They can come back in the spring. When you plant a tree in the spring that you find at the store, that tree is, 6, 8, 10, 12 feet tall. It's trying to support its entire upper structure at the same time that it's trying to support its root structure and develop it. And it's very stressful on the plant when it's competing with heat and all the other stressors involved. So if you can find out the best time to plant that, that will give you the best success for your flowers or whatever it is you're trying to plant. I say flowers because I grow a lot of flowers. Majority of my flowers go in the fall, and they last through the winter, and then they come up and take off in the spring. So knowing the right time to plant the kind of plant you want can really help you out. So that might take some research on your part, but it can really make a huge difference in what you're trying to grow. Here's my planning disclaimer again. Okay, so scenario one, we're going to put a flower bed in the middle of the yard before spring because we want flowers this year. So we have a couple of large deciduous trees in there, so they don't have any leaves on them. They are west of the flower bed, meaning that there's roots around them, and this flower bed is going to have some afternoon shade. So we don't want to damage the roots of these trees, so we're going to put a raised bed in. And it's important to know that when you plant a raised bed, that raised bed can smother the roots of the tree, so we're trying to move the bed a little further away from the tree. So this flower bed's going to be in the middle of the yard. It's got a tree to the west, so it's going to be provided shade in the afternoon. So that'll help take some of the stress off the plants. So it's all about the soil. Here again, it's all about the soil. And one of the reasons it's all about the soil is because the soil will hold more water if it has more organic matter. I can't remember the statistics, but for every 0.5% of organic matter added, it retains so much extra moisture. So it makes a huge difference in the water retention of that soil. So there's currently grass in this area we're going to plant, so we have to get rid of the grass. And we have to prepare the area for the raised beds. And I can tell you personally from experience, if you just till that grass up, it makes lots more grass. You're going to fight it even more. So how do we kill the grass? And one of the terms that's used frequently is called lasagna gardening. Now, this is not a Texas AgriLife link, but it does, this link shows you how to make a lasagna garden. And there, I looked at the AgriLife site, I couldn't find anything specific about this, and that's why I went here. It's probably listed under another term. So this is lasagna gardening. This is just one example. It's not in my yard, but in this example, they use newspaper. In my example, we use cardboard, but it just means you leave the grass in place and you put the different materials on top of it. There's my mouse. Here we are. Okay, so this is the grassy area we're going to plant in. And this is how we're going to start it. Lots and lots of cardboard. I can tell you I've probably gotten 30 truckfuls of cardboard this last year for some different gardens that I wanted to do, and I wanted to do them this way. So I found a local furniture company that said you can have all the cardboard you want, and we would just go over at night and pick up all the cardboard we want. Also, I became a Dollar Tree dumpster diver last summer and pulled boxes and boxes, carloads of cardboard out of that dumpster. I'm not advocating you go dumpster diving, but I just want you to know there's lots of free cardboard available if you go looking for it. So here we took all the cardboard and piled it on the ground. Why isn't it moving? Oh, okay. So then this happens to be a little raised garden someone got at one of the tool stores, and she gave it to me. So I set it right here on top of the cardboard. Something else you can do if you have food scraps or any kind of that type of thing laying around, you can throw it underneath the cardboard. It helps, it'll continue to decompose, it'll bring up worms. So I set this little garden thing right here, and I filled it with mulch. And you can see what it looks like over here with the mulch on it. I piled in about half full of mulch. And one place that you can get mulch is this getchipdrop.com. A couple places. So getchipdrop.com lets you sign up for whatever kind of mulch you want. Trees, logs, well chipped up stuff. And if they are in your area, it's for landscapers who need a place to dump this stuff. They will dump it exactly where you've told them. So it's a good way to get inexpensive mulch. Another place you can get it is at the Denton Recycle Center. I use it for dino dirt over there, but they also sell for $3 a yard, you can get mulch, and they'll put it in the bed of your truck, or they have a list of people who will deliver up to 30 yards of it if you need it. So what we did right here is we piled all the mulch into this little garden. And this is, so I went to the Dino Dirt, cityofdenton.com. This is the Dino Dirt website. I purchased a Dino soil blend. Usually I get Dino Dirt, which is just the composted material. This time I wanted a blend, so it was an all ready to plant soil. So you can see what it looks like. It's quite sandy, 60% Dino soil, Dino Dirt, and 40% soil. And it was, I want to say $26 a yard, but if you pay for 10 yards at a time, I think you get it for about $20 a yard, and then you can just pick it up as you need it. I seem to have a delay here when I change slides. I don't know why. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I've piled it in. And as you notice, I piled it quite high because it's going to settle over time. It's right here, completely filled in. And that's going to settle over time. Sorry, I'm having this delay. I don't know if it's because of the internet or... Okay. And this is what it looks like planted. So this was lavender we planted. Now lavender happens to be a very drought tolerant plant. It's beneficial to bees. It's very low maintenance. It's also super easy to propagate. I propagated probably 300 plants off initial 2 or 3 cuttings, and I kept making trays of them and then trimming those and making trays of them, and I had 100% propagation success, just cutting the stems and using a rooting hormone and putting a little plastic dome over them. So super, super easy to propagate, and the master gardeners can tell you how to do that if you're interested in doing that. So all of the lavender I did this year, I propagated myself. Over here is another plant called bee balm. And this is a mealy sage down here. This is the bed right beside it. I'm just showing it to you because this is a very hardy plant. This bee balm is beautiful in the spring. It was out in that I had -6 degrees at my place. And this is, what, 3 weeks later, and look at how beautiful it is. And it was just planted. I started the seeds and put 1 inch, these were 1 inch plugs when I put them in here, so they're doing great. And this little bit of greenery down here is crimson clover, which is a cover crop I started just 2-3 weeks ago. And then we'll put mulch all in between all these plants to help hold the soil and retain water. So that's one way to prepare your beds. And you can see how easily these beds are put together, take no materials at all. So this is what the bee balm looks like when it's flowering, and this is what the lavender looks like when it's flowering. Both very drought tolerant plants, beautiful, they'll bloom all summer, almost no care. So scenario 2, time is it 12:30? we're going to add some native plants to an existing garden before spring because we want it to establish this growing season. So we're going to try to do it before spring hits, which means we did it first week, end of February, first week of March. And we have some trees around there in the flower bed, so it's going to get some shade. And we don't want to damage the roots, so we're going to put them a little further away from the tree. So this is where we went to Painted Flower Farm. They happen to be a little flower farm up here in Denton that has all native plants. And this is their demonstration bed on the side of their little farm. And there's no tilling, there's minimal foot traffic, and the soil has been amended over the years. So it has relatively sandy, loose soil with lots of organic matter in it. This is Lanceleaf Coreopsis, which is one of the plants I'm planting in here. This is what it looks like end of February. So it was out in the cold and still looks great. And this is what it's going to look like in the spring. This beautiful yellow flower. It's going to bloom all spring into summer. And here's a website where you can look up that particular plant, Lanceleaf Coreopsis. And so when I dug the hole, I made it 2-3 times as wide as the plant. This is what the root ball looked like when I pulled it out. And of course, if I just left it like this, the plant would just continue to grow in that circle. It wouldn't reach out into the soil around it. So I literally ripped the root ball apart. And I know some people are concerned that it's going to hurt the plant, but I ripped it this drastically so that the roots will then reach out into the soil around it and continue to grow. So don't worry about that when you're planting these plants. We can be pretty drastic with them, and they're pretty hard. Stuck it in the hole, shoved the soil back in. I didn't add any extra soil, but there's a lot of leaf matter around there. The soil is, again, loose and pretty, has a lot of organic matter in there. If it wasn't that case, you could add some compost, but it's important that you blend whatever you add to the soil instead of just filling that hole with compost, because we don't want that plant to have one nice little compact comfort zone. We want it to know that it has to go out into the world and become a bigger plant. You know, it just has to do it. So that's what we've done here. Put all the soil back in, watered it heavily, and that's it. And the last one, we're going to add plants to an existing garden before spring. We want it to establish this growing season. Again, we have trees around it in the flower bed, and so there's some shade. So this is, again, in an area by my place. And we don't want to damage the roots, so we're moving a little bit away from the tree. So the existing area has no existing plants, but some 20-year-old trees. The area has been covered with containers. I've ripped it up for iris bulbs, hasn't been watered, never been amended except leaves falling on it, and lots of foot traffic. Like I said, no deliberate soil amendments in the last 10 years. And last fall, we covered this whole area with cardboard and 6 to 10 inches of mulch. So we did several hundred square feet, and we've just walked on it since then. We got our mulch from, you know, the people that you might see out there trimming the tree lines. I had just spent $500 on mulch through the city of Denton, having it delivered. You know, I paid a couple $100 for someone to deliver 30, 40 yards of it, and it was sitting in by my front gate. And the people who trimmed the trees came by and said, hey, you want more? So we said, sure. We got about 60 truckfuls. So we were very fortunate, and it's a game changer. The mulch is really a game changer because it fills in areas that would typically fill with water, and it makes a nice walking area. So whatever you can do for mulch, get chipdrop.com or anywhere else, whatever you can do, the mulch makes a huge difference. This area gets sun early afternoon, and I want greenery for flower bouquets, and there's not going to be any irrigation system there right now. I'm just going to hand water this as I need it. This is the plant. It's not a native plant. It's just one I want for some greenery. So this is the hole I dug, and as you can see, there's lots of leaf debris and pieces of cardboard, and there's a worm, so I know the soil's getting built up properly. This is the root ball as I tore it apart after I pulled that plant out of the pot. And you can see the hole I've put in there is pretty big compared to the plant. I watered it in, mulch and cardboard around the base to prevent weeds and hold more moisture. So this is the area you can see there's a lot of, it looks like leaves, but it's really the mulch. And having the cardboard down on the soil, on top of the soil, keeps the grass from growing. And, you know, grass is a huge problem for us because it's, you know, it's this coastal Bermuda stuff that seems to be everywhere. And the cardboard holds the moisture in the soil. It kills the grass. It starts to decompose under there. The mulch keeps the moisture in that soil also. So it really minimizes the amount of water that I have to do here. So anytime you can cover that soil and hold the moisture, that's really the goal. And it also prevents weeds. So then a little bit about irrigation. Here's a rainwater calculator. Consider drip irrigation or some form of rainwater collection system, because I think I could be slightly off, but it's around 70% of the water used is used for, and Blake can correct me, for irrigation and landscape. So if you can consider drip irrigation or some form of rainwater collection system. So if you have a 2,000 square foot roof and you would get 32 inches on the average of rain around here, you can save almost 40,000 gallons of water off that roof. And the same roof, 1 inch of rain, you can get 1,200 gallons. So even if you have just a 50-gallon rainwater collection system by the side of your house to do one garden and you collect some of that water, it saves water, and it's a huge commodity. So just to give you an idea of how much water you can save. This is drip irrigation, this thing up on the left. All of this garden is a 2,500 square foot garden, and the greenhouse is another 1,000 foot. So there's 3,500 square feet of garden right here. And the red barn on the far side, I put the irrigation from that building off the front faucet. So there's not any high tech, nothing high tech about any of this. I did it all myself. That faucet line that comes over here comes through this little black tee. This came from Home Depot. This came from, you know, a box store. I bought it online, but you can find some variation of every one of these parts at the box stores. And this one line here coming off here feeds this entire 2,500 square foot area. And then I have drip tape and drip lines and whatever in here, but it's easy to do. It's like playing with Tinker Toys, so please don't let it scare you. It's the very best way to irrigate in North Texas and save water and conserve water. So these little valves turn it on and off, and like I said, I don't do anything, nothing high-tech about this whole system, and it covers this entire area. I just manually turn it off and turn it on whatever little area in here that I want at any particular time. So this is, I ran a PVC line. Again, it's just glue these white pipes together, and the parts can be purchased from any local store, and then all of this tubing is super easy to do. Before you dig in your yard though, I want to tell you there's an 811 number you should call, and they will come out free of charge and mark every line, gas line, electric line, water line in your yard, so that you don't disturb anything or hurt anybody or turn off anybody's internet. So just something to consider. 811 is the number to call. And I've called them many times, even though I've had this land and put all this stuff in myself. I know where things are. I still call 811 because it makes me feel protected. Drip irrigation is the way to go. And this is just a reminder, don't forget to go visit our dcmga.com. It talks about our events. It talks about North Texas gardening and natives you need. We have our access to our newsletter that you can subscribe to. You can become a master gardener. Anything you want to know about gardening in North Texas, it's a great place to start. So that's what I have today. Just the major takeaways I want you to think about are: cover your soil, everything you can do to retain water. Planting natives will definitely make a difference, and they're gorgeous plants. I don't want you to think that they're just pasture plants. They're not. They're huge, gorgeous plants. And the trees that native trees that we have are beautiful also. So go with natives, conserve your water, everything you can to build your soil, and it'll make a huge difference in your garden. So that's it. Are any questions?
All right, thank you, Sue. We haven't seen any questions coming yet, but if you have some, feel free to type them in the chat box, or even if you want to unmute yourself, you can just ask. One question I would have is, if someone is just looking, maybe not for a garden or flower bed, but just like their turf grass lawn, if they're wanting to improve the soil on their turf grass, what can they do?
Well, you can add compost to the top of that. You can surface compost it. You can, instead of bagging up those leaves, I mean, don't bag your leaves up, for gosh sakes. Take those leaves and mulch them in. You can get a mulching blade on your mower and mulch those leaves into your lawn, because that will decompose and become the fertilizer for you. So don't cut your leaves up. I mean, don't bag your leaves up. Use them, because they're super, you know, if you go into a native forest, you're going to see so much leaf litter on the ground, and it just totally decomposes over time and feeds that soil. So that's what you're trying to do. I would leave those leaves on the ground and mulch them in. But if you go to Aggie Horticulture and search for turf grass, they have a whole section on turf grass management.
Cool. And what about compaction? I know my yard has suffered from foot traffic and things like that. What do you have recommendations for helping with compaction?
Are you talking about the grass or garden?
Grass.
So I know there are aerators you can use to break up the soil. Now, another thing, I purchased this last year, and I really didn't think there would be a benefit to it, but it's called a gardening fork. And I spent about $80 on this fork, and I really didn't think it would make a difference. But the purpose of it in a gardening bed is to go in and you just push it, you put it in the soil, and then you lean forward and back and you pull it out, and it opens up the soil, allows the water to go down in there, get down further, and build your roots further down into the soil. And I can imagine that you could do that in your lawn too. It's no different than renting one of those rollers that has little spikes on it, you know, for aerating your soil. So if you're going to do any gardening, you might look at a gardening fork that you could use. I'm sure you could use it in your lawn, no different than using it in the garden, and it would help you in both places, but it's just something to think about.
Yeah, it's funny that we're talking about this today. I actually picked, try to show you, I picked this up at Lowe's today. This is maybe kind of what you're talking about. It's something I can just push into the ground, and
I can't see you.
Yeah, well, this fork part, it will take a soil plug.
Oh, there it is.
Out of the lawn to open up that soil.
Oh, yeah.
So this was like 27 bucks at Lowe's.
Let's see the tines on that. Can you hold it up so I can see the tines on it? Yeah, they're pretty thick. Mine are also pretty thick, but mine have 4 or 5, but very similar. You put it in, and then you rotate it back and forth, and you pull it out, and it goes down about 6-8 inches. But I was surprised. I was doing a garden on the back of the house, off my patio, and I had put this garden in 20 years ago, and I had put down a lot of layers of fabric to prevent the weeds from coming up, and then 10 inches of soil, and over the years it compacted, and it just kept piling stuff on it. And to be honest, this garden was more like rock, and I couldn't even get a shovel in it. And I took this gardening fork, and it went into that soil like butter. I was shocked. So, I mean, that one time converted me. I was sold on it. So something like that, or what you have in your hand, is probably the thing to try.
Awesome. We are getting some questions. Stephanie asked, native flowers for a small color bed that gets part sun, part shade, and bee friendly. Does the Master Gardener website have plant recommendations?
They do, and they do have recommendations for that. I'm a beekeeper, so I'm always looking for native plants that are friendly to bees. But I know that you can get that information from the DCMGA website. I know they have a list of, I thought they were doing one of the classes in here on native plants, but I didn't see it listed. Otherwise, I would have brought it up more, but there are a lot of them. And Painted Flower Farm is a place to consider for, even if you just want to talk to them about native plants. They can give you an idea of what they look like, how they grow, what might work in your area. And, but you know, the Gardener website has a lot of that information. And I talk about Painted Flower Farm just because they're between the highway and where I live. I know the people there, and I know the information they've passed on to me. They're just super helpful giving you information. So.
Yeah, and I had posted earlier in the chat box, there's a group called Rooted In. That's the former AgriLife Water University team.
Okay.
And they are selling their edible and Texas Tough native garden boxes this year, which are just a set of different, I think about 11 different starter plants that are native. They're pollinator friendly, and Upper Trinity, as well as some of the other water providers, are developing are sponsoring the development of some of the educational materials that go along with that. So if you go to that rootedin.com/shop link, you can see those, see the plant list for those different ones. So that may be something to consider.
And I saw Pat Moyer just posted something about a list.
Yeah, this is Liz. I'm trying to post the Native Plant Society website. For some reason, my keyboard is not happy with that, so I'll get it up there. But it has lists for butterfly garden, sun, shade, wet, dry.
And here's another thing too. If you go to cover cropping, you know, we didn't talk about, I just talked a little bit about cover cropping and the crimson clover that I put in that little tiny garden. But those cover crops, the purpose of a cover crop is to cover the soil with something that will benefit the soil, either enrich the soil or bring something up from further down to the surface so the plants can get to it, or weed prevention or water retention. The cover crops really are beneficial, and I've started using them more and more. And all it means is when your soil is bare, put something in it, cover it with this crop, and let it grow. And we use a lot of clovers that look beautiful, are bee friendly, and can really help your soil at the same time. So you can look up cover cropping. I know that there's a lot of information out there too on cover cropping with AgriLife, and some local seed companies also have different things on cover crops to use locally.
Okay, so Laura had asked about replacing Indian Hawthorns, and there are some suggestions below that Liz Moyer was mentioning. Kimberly asked, yes, this will be on YouTube, and I will, once I process and edit the video, I'll post that to YouTube and send the link out like I did for this last week. Brian asks, with regards to taking soil analysis samples, should this be soil you have never amended before? Or if it is from an existing bed, at what time of year or how long since, or if it is from an existing bed, at what time of year or how long since last applying any amendment should a soil sample be taken for analysis?
You should take that soil sample whenever you decide you want to, you know, when you're thinking of planting there, take that soil sample, because you want them to see what the soil looks like right now. So it doesn't matter really what time of year it is, just take that soil sample then, so that they'll know that right now this is what the soil looks like, and it can, that you'll need to add this to it or that to it, or it's fine or whatever. So I would just take it when you're ready.
All right, Anastasia says, we are planning to remove most, if not all, of our backyard grass in the next year. Should we continue to water and maintain it until then, or should we just shut off the sprinklers? We will convert to a drip system.
Oh boy, that's a hard one. If you just shut off the water to that yard, now your soil is going to become very dry and hard, and now you're going to have other issues maybe to deal with. You know, especially in this climate. I don't know how close that building is to your house, but if there's no water and the soil gets really dry, it can have an impact on your foundation. So I don't necessarily know that you would shut off the water to the whole area, because that's going to really dry everything up, and now your soil is not even going to have moisture in it, and the roots aren't going to be, you know, opening the soil. I don't know that that's the best answer. I don't honestly know. I don't think I would turn off the water to it. You might reach out to the Master Gardener website, see what they suggest. You could always throw something else out there that would be beneficial, like throw some clover seed out there and let the clover grow and help the soil, build the soil at the same time. So rather than just, you know, leave the grass there, it's not too expensive to throw out some clover or some other cover cropping seeds that might enhance the soil and add more nutrients to the soil. So when you do get ready to plant, it's there. By removing a whole backyard of soil, that's a big endeavor.
Thank you. And no, I liked your, what made me ask the question was seeing the cardboard and the mulch. And so areas that we will retain or maybe not do retaining walls, or that we will plant. And I think we're going to move that direction. That was neat to see everything not have to be removed. So thank you.
Oh yeah, I've done tons and tons of cardboard, let me tell you. The critical thing is to make sure you get everything covered without spaces in between. So when I was dumpster diving at Dollar Tree, I got dozens of cars full of cardboard, of smaller boxes. Some of those areas I've seen little pieces of grass coming up because I didn't get them covered as well. If you can get the larger cardboard from a local furniture store, you'll be better off, because then you're getting cardboard that's 8 feet by 8 feet. It's easy to put it, it's super thick cardboard. You can pile it on, you can make sure you overlap it, and you don't have any openings. So good idea.
All right, Brian also asked, is there an advantage to using the expanded shale you discussed versus a coarse sand or pea gravel for compaction prevention and creating soil air spaces?
I don't know, the pea gravel sounds like it's going to be heavier than expanded shale, but I'm not an expert on it. I've not done it. So I couldn't honestly tell you. You know, you might reach out to Living Earth and ask them, because they are, you know, I don't know. You might ask them. You might pose the question to the Master Gardener website too. I don't honestly know the answer. The gravel or pea gravel sounds like it'd be heavy, but I've not seen expanded shale, so I don't know what it looks like either. I just read about it. It's not my expertise.
All right, next question. My Indian hawthorns are brown. Will they come back with time, or is it time to replace them?
I don't know. Are they brown because of the freeze? That's the question. And this is what I've heard. I've heard a lot of people in the gardening industry say, oh my God, people are just flocking to the stores. They're ripping everything out of their yards, and they're just putting everything brand new in because they want it to look perfect, or for whatever reason, I don't know why. But honestly, so many plants, the roots are still alive. It's just going to take them time to come back and show you. So I don't know that I would rip them all out. You might just wait. If you can live with it looking crappy for a couple of months to see if it's there, you might just leave it. It's not the end of the world, and the plant might just come back just fine. we had a lot of things left out that got, like I said, it was -6, and everything in my yard has come back. Everything. I had all kinds of flowers in the yard, and they completely died back to the ground, and they are 6 inches tall, and it's been what, 3.5 weeks. So some of the bushes, I can look at the base and I can see a little bit of green. I walked past every bush and I'll scratch the trunk all the way down till I find green. And as soon as I find green, I know the plant's still alive and it's probably going to come back. So you might just scratch the trunk or the branches till you get down close to the very bottom and see if you see anything green inside that stem. If it is, it's just going to take time to come back.
Okay, it looks like maybe the last question, are there any health concerns with using root hormone?
Not as far as I know. It's a rooting hormone. Some of the plants like pussy willow, and I'll use pussy willow as an example because I'm doing it right now. That plant has a natural rooting hormone and it roots very quickly. Plants naturally have a rooting hormone. I don't know that there's any any health concerns about using it. It's not a concern I have personally, but you might check the disclaimer on the package and see what it says.
Yeah, that it's a like with Roundup, but Roundup is a herbicide.
That's when you're trying to kill something. But yeah, rooting hormone is definitely not that.
Yeah, read the label.
Yeah, read the label. I have 3 or 4 different rooting hormones. And you know, you can even look up some natural way of rooting things. I use rooting hormone on that lavender, but I've heard people say they've, you know, I'm not even going to repeat what they are, but if you look online, there are some natural different ways to root. And I've also just take the cuttings, put them in moist soil, pack the soil around them, and watered them heavily and kept them covered, and they rooted fine. So, I mean, you may not even need the rooting hormone. You just have to try it yourself and see.